Hey everyone, Nicholas here from Crippled Tech and welcome back to another video. Crippled Tech へようこそ。Nicholas です。よろしくお願いします。I'm going to be exploring a potentially major flaw in AMD chipset motherboard options in the current market with this video. With all the drama going on in the PC tech market recently, particularly with the graphics card, NVIDIA's 50 series and AMD's RX 9000 series XT and non-XT graphics cards. This motherboard issue can be, I wouldn't call it an issue necessarily on a technical level, but this issue is more on the marketing side of things, informing customers on what exactly they're buying with each motherboard, but an issue nonetheless, even though it's not technical. So I hope this video can help shine some light on this issue, despite what's going on with the PC tech market, the drama focusing on GPUs, the GPU drama over there. So this shining light on this issue, I hope, especially for beginners, can help you make a more informed decision when buying AMD chipset motherboards for current gen specifically. So I first noticed this flaw in the motherboard specs across all current gen options when researching for the previous video, which is what I chose for new PC part build in 2025. Current gen options for AMD motherboards, meaning the 800 series chipsets motherboards. So for beginners who don't know what to look out for when choosing and comparing motherboards, assuming you've decided on a platform, AM5 for example, for the purpose of this video, because this marketing flaw is more on AMD current gen motherboards. You look at the chipset options and the available connectivity, like the amount of M.2 slots for SSDs, amount of USB connectors, both internal and external, SATA ports, how many SATA ports are available, and etc. That is not even considering if you have an aesthetic preference for the motherboard, like if you want a white motherboard for example. So for AMD AM5 boards, the current gen 8000 series chipsets can be segmented into three categories: X870E and X870 in the high end, and then you have B850 in the mid tier and B840 in the lower end tier. So you have three segments: high end tier, mid tier, and low tier. The logical thinking is that the higher end you go, the more connectivity and features you get, meaning X870E chipset motherboards will have the most connectivity and features, and you get less and less as you go down the stack from X870, I keep saying X870, that's the previous gen, X870E down to X870, down to B850, the less and less you get. However, there's a common connectivity limitation in most X870 boards. That is the standard X870 without the E, not the X870E. Pronouncing this chipset is very hard. So the X870, not without the E, the standard one, in some use cases makes B850 boards supposedly lower tier chipset than X870. A more appealing option. So you may know that I chose a Gigabyte B850 Aorus Elite Wi-Fi 7 ICE for my mixed use case high-end PC build in the previous video. Since it is a high-end build, why not opt for an X870 equivalent board for more connectivity? Supposedly X870 is higher tier than B850. So yeah, why is that? Now if you look at the two equivalent boards with different chipsets carefully, the X870 board has 4 physical M.2 slots while the B850 board has 3 physical M.2 slots. So more slots for more expandability, more SSD drop-in upgrades, right? But if you read the specs in detail, there are two M.2 slots on the X870 board that shares bandwidth with a PCIe by 16 slot where the graphics card is installed. So, meaning if any one of those two particular M.2 slots is used for an SSD, the PCIe lane bandwidth to the graphics card gets cut down to by 8 instead of the full by 16 bandwidth. This means if you want full bandwidth to your graphics card on this particular X870 board, you cannot use these two M.2 slots. Now you're limited to only two M.2 slots that you can use to populate for SSDs for storage. There's also another M.2 slot that shares bandwidth with a lower PCIe by 4 slot. Now you won't be able to use that by 4 slot if you for expansion card like capture cards and whatnot, audio cards, if you populate this M.2 slot for SSD. So that PCIe by 4 slot will be disabled. You can't use it if that M.2 slot is used for an SSD. So yeah, but if you look at the B850 board, there are no limitations whatsoever due to no PCIe lane sharing, or as more advanced people will call it PCIe bifurcation. There are no lane sharing bifurcation to worry about in B850 boards. With any of the M.2 slots, you won't need to worry about bandwidth getting cut in half or disabled when using all 3 available physical M.2 slots. That is why for the specific build in the previous video, I went for the B850 board instead of the X870 equivalent board, because it will allow me to be able to populate all 3 M.2 slots for SSDs without any PCIe bifurcation lane cutting to any of the PCIe slots for expansion cards. Other X870 boards have similar connectivity setup and limitations as well compared to their B850 board counterparts. I'll just put some examples up on screen for you to see, and you can go to the link in the description down below for all the boards I've shown and mentioned in this video. You can look at the specs, read the specs carefully to see what kind of connectivity you're giving up on an X870 board. Now, I want to make it very clear that I'm aware that cutting the PCIe bandwidth to current gen graphics card in half, meaning PCIe by 16 down to by 8 to the current gen graphics card, has little to no effect on performance, since current gen graphics card come nowhere close to saturating the full bandwidth of PCIe 5 by 16 or even PCIe 4.0 by 16. But with technology moving so fast nowadays, and with how many people stay on the same motherboard, same platform for multiple years and upgrading graphics card in the future, it might be a different story when you upgrade to a future graphics card and staying on the same motherboard. So when picking a motherboard, I always recommend that you pick with the mindset of populate all the available M.2 slots for storage and see what limitations I get with that particular board if I go with that board. So with that mindset, you are able to drop in SSDs, new SSDs, expand your storage without worrying about PCIe bifurcation, lane sharing in the future. And another thing is, I also know that X870 boards have to make these sacrifices for bandwidth available for USB 4.0. So it is up to you, the consumers, to pick your poison. Do you give up USB 4 for no PCIe lane sharing bifurcation complications, or are you willing to make do with the PCIe lane sharing complications for USB 4.0 connectivity, or just go all out with X870E and not worry about any of that? Looking at all of this, AMD should have segmented the X870 chipset together with the B850 chipset in the mid-tier instead of bundling X870 together with the X870E on the high end. That really confuses consumers, and it confused me at the very beginning of the research as well. So yeah, I was wondering why B850 boards have no limitations while the higher end X870 boards have this kind of limitations for PCIe lane sharing. And if you look at AMD's official website on their current gen chipsets for AM5, the usable PCIe lanes for B850 and X870 is almost similar, indicating that they're in the same tier, even though X870 is being marketed as a higher tier close to X870E, which is not the case at all. So this current naming will most likely confuse beginners. It even confused me at the very early stage of the research, and there are a lot of people that are not aware of PCIe lane sharing and its complications, PCIe bifurcation complications, and most who won't need USB 4.0 anyway. People shopping at the mid to high end tier, you may think getting an X870 board is better because it is marketed as a higher tier than B850, but you might not need USB 4.0. You might not even have any USB 4.0 devices to make use of the USB 4 connectivity, and the PCIe lane sharing bifurcation may be a significant limitation for you. Even not now, it may be a limitation in the future if you want to upgrade down the line a few years later, which can all be avoided by going with B850 board if you're not willing to go up your budget or insist on a certain look like a white motherboard. I've looked around, there are no white X870E chipset motherboards. All the white high-end motherboards for AM5 current gen X870 and B850 only. So yeah, if you go up to X870E, there are no white motherboards. So you're limited in that way if you really insist on white motherboards. With that in mind, AMD really should be more clear and more transparent and be less confusing when segmenting and naming their products. Whatever product it is, CPUs, motherboard chipsets, whatever products, the naming and the segmentation should be very clear for consumers. Not like the current 800 series chipset on the AM5 motherboards. The segmentation and the naming scheme is very unclear and confusing. It even confused me. Again, I've repeated this multiple times. It confused me in the very early stages of researching for the previous video. With the current gen 800 series chipset motherboards from AMD, it's almost as if they're intentionally doing it to confuse customers, though I hope that isn't the case. もしそうならずるいよ。そんなことしないでくれ。AMD, you guys currently have enough dominance, enough competition over Intel in the consumer CPU market space that you guys really don't need this kind of anti-consumer marketing to get people to jump ship. And I don't see this issue mentioned a lot in the big tech media outlets and YouTube channels. Even though I've seen some, they talked about it, but it is not talked about enough. The message is, I feel like it's not widespread enough given the current situation. So I hope this one more video on the internet can help you discover this issue and this information and be more informed when you're buying motherboards for your new systems. So that's about it for this video. I hope you're able to make a more informed decision when choosing motherboards for your PC after this video. If you did learn something, or if you just enjoyed my yapping in this video, leave a like and subscribe to Crippled Tech for more tech content in the future. And comment down below any thoughts, your own experience shopping for motherboards, and feel free to ask questions down there as well. Always happy to help out. いつでも喜んで手伝うよ。ニコラスでした。応援してくれてありがとうございます。これからもよろしくお願いします。じゃあぜひまた次の動画でお会いしましょう。じゃあまた。